Today we're going to meet Dr. Marilyn Adams. Dr. Adams was born in December of 1948 and received her PhD in cognitive psychology and developmental psychology. She was honored in the Politics of Education yearbook as one of the 5 most influential people in national reading policy. Dr. Adams also received an award recognizing her outstanding efforts in educational research. Dr. Adams has been involved on many committees. She was a member of the study committee for the National Academy of Sciences report entitled Preventing Reading Difficulties in Young Children. She served on the Board of Society for Scientific Studies of Reading, the International Dyslexia Association, and the College Board's Advisory Committee for Teaching and Learning. She is also a published author and is well known for the book Beginning to Read, Thinking and Learning About Print. This project was actually a result of a congressional request for an evaluation of phonics instruction. Amid the phonics versus whole language debate, she sought to examine the perspectives, fleshing out the strengths and weaknesses of both, and review what is known about, as she says, the knowledge and experience that are required for acquiring literacy. Before we learn more about the theory under which Marilyn Adams' work falls, try this activity. Read this sentence. What word do you think is missing? How about now? Did you come up with this sentence? The parallel distributed processing model that Adams describes, and which we will talk about today, illustrates how various connections helped you to not only read the words on the page, but determine what word was missing. One lens of reading are the cognitive processing perspectives. They attempt to explain what is happening in our minds, and the parallel distributed processing model is one such approach to this perspective that Adams explains in her book, Beginning to Read. This model is a connectionist theory of reading. In this model, information is stored as connections in our mind. When information is linked or paired repeatedly, these connections strengthen and happen faster. There are 4 processors involved in the reading process. The orthographic processor is where the reading process begins. It stores the information of letter identification and letter patterns. The meaning processor is where meaning is connected to words. Take the word golf, for example. One person might think of an 18-hole course, while another person might make a connection to miniature golf. Still another might think about the card game called golf. Schema definitely comes into play here. The phonological processor deals with sound and using sounds to support word identification and meaning. We make connections with sounds that often occur together. The final processor is the context processor. Here, the reader is making and monitoring meaning of phrases, sentences, and full texts while reading. Connections are being made between vocabulary, the topic, and the whole text itself. Connections between the context processor and the meaning processor help readers to anticipate what words will be coming up in the text next. So, what does this model look like in reading? We are going to try out 2 examples now. First, we will take a closer look at the orthographic connection. Let's say you are reading and see a word that starts with a T. What letter might you anticipate would come next? Pause the video and think about it, or jot down what letters could possibly come next. Did letters like A, R, H, O, or U make your list? We often see those letters come after the letter T. But I bet G, P, K, or B didn't make the list. This idea that certain letters came to your mind while others were pushed away is called the interletter associational unit system. And it helps readers develop rapid word identification by using these connections between letter patterns. In this second example, we'll look at the meaning connection. What word comes to mind when you think of the word beach? Pause the video and think about or jot down what words or phrases come to mind. Maybe words like surfing, waves, sand, or swimsuits came to mind, or maybe even sunburn. The idea that our schema supports us in our reading is emphasized here. So how does this all relate to reading and teaching students how to read? Adams addresses one notion that a reader is able to use sentence structure, like syntax, and meaning, like semantics, to determine words with little thought to visual information. However, Adams explains that a reader is not using the visual information less, but is able to process letters and words so quickly, like a lightning bolt, that it is seamlessly done and more cognitive space is then given to determining meaning. With regard to the phonics versus whole language debate, it shouldn't be one or the other, but the connection of both. Adams notes that a solid understanding of the alphabet and the letter-sound relationships is crucial to reading. Without this automaticity, reading is slowed and meaning can be lost. In other words, if too much time is spent at the lower levels of processing, like the orthographic or phonological processor, then the higher level processor, the context processor, is negatively impacted. These ideas can be seen in classroom activities that support orthographic connections, like alphabet activities and word families, and even poems. The meaning processor is seen through the use of context clues and activating prior knowledge during reading. Now consider your own experiences. Think about the parallel distributed processing model in your classroom. How do you see the connection between the 4 processors in your students and their reading? Share your thoughts on the Padlet link on the D2L.